Call the meeting to order, please stand and join me. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to the March 12, 2018 4-day Town Board meeting. First, we'll take a moment of silence for the deceased residents who passed away during the last month. Wayne Bennett, Helen Caparood, Elaine Stark, Linda Gagliardi, Judy Lynch, and Marjorie Haven. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we need a motion to approve the meeting.
I'll make that.
Need a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? I votes aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, next, we need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular town board meeting on February 12, 2018.
So moved. I'll second it.
Any discussion needed? I votes aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Next, we need a motion to approve the minutes of the special town board meeting that was held on February 21st, 2018.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Any discussion needed? I votes aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Next is the financial report for the month of February. The receipts for the general fund were in the amount of $22,489.59. The disbursements for the general fund was in the amount of $345,685.83. And the disbursements for the highway, total highway was $78,140.50. The checking account balances as of the end of February, the general fund is $500,732.51. The highway fund is $51,189.19. The youth commission's $1,295.40. The Hadlock Dam project's $239.92. The Hadlock Park District Fund is $16,848.86. Consolidated Health District, $1,107.58. Trusted Agency Fund, $2,463.11. And the Medical Reimbursement Fund, $100.61. The saving account balances, the general fund is $445,093.07. The Hadlock Park District is $239,116.48. The highway fund is $1,046,551.04. And LoSAP is $14,319.25. So we need a motion to authorize the payment of the bills.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Any discussion needed? I votes aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Next on the agenda this evening, we have a presentation from Tracy Clothier from the LA group regarding the Battle Hill Trails Master Plan. Tracy, the floor is yours.
Hi all, my name is Tracy Clothier. I'm with the LA group. I'm a planner with them and do a lot of trails and recreational planning. So my purpose of coming here tonight was to inform the town board about the project and the status and what we're going to be doing, and also the public. And there's a little handout I put on the distributed. Unfortunately, you can't see that picture in color, both of them, because the little pictures at the bottom are really quite extraordinary. And that is a photograph that I took from forgot the name of the road, but looking at Battle Hill, and it really is quite extraordinary, as you all probably know. Then the other little map is just a little drawing of what happened during one part of the battle of Battle Hill. So the project is to create a trails plan for Battle Hill. This could be one trail, it could be a system of trails, it depends on what exactly is up there and available to us. The project cost is $40,000. $20,000 is provided as a grant from the Hudson River Valley Greenway. They offer those grants annually, and Fort Anne, of course, rated very, very high, as this is a principal battlefield of the Revolutionary War. So the required match, it's a 50-50 program, and the required match will be provided through in-kind services and other grants and cash as available. So what are we going to do? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to review there's a lot of background work that's been done on this and continues to be done on this. We know a preservation plan is ongoing and not completed yet. So we're going to review all that information to really figure out what is this place and what could it be. We're going to conduct a site investigation. So that's really looking at walking the site. It's 160 acres, so it's no small feat, but it is inventorying the site conditions. So looking at, where can a trail naturally go? We know there's some footpaths and little roads up through there, but are they where you want the trail to go? We're going to look at the areas of archaeological investigation. Those have to be avoided. And in some cases you want to avoid them altogether. And we're going to look at where could there be nice view sheds coming off the mountain where you could create a little lookout and have the visitor actually experience what it was like to be up there during that war at that time. Of course, we know it was very heavily wooded, but on the edges you get this incredible view of the Lake George watershed and to the south as well. So then we're also going to look at environmental. And environmental, as you know, in New York State is a big deal. All right, you have to, and with the archaeology and the historical sensitivity of the site, we have to be carefully looking at, where these are, identifying where they are, avoiding them, etc. There are always permits and approvals, and we will identify what those are and how to get them. It's a town site, so it's probably not too many actual permits, but you will have to go through the gauntlet of the SHPO to get this accomplished. Then we'll develop a draft plan, concept plan, followed by a final plan after we look at it. And that will happen when we conduct public outreach. So we're not going to do this on our own. We're going to have a committee of people that will help guide me and my staff as to how they want this to go, because it's kind of isolated up there. So how are you going to, how do you develop the site as a destination for visitors? Is it an economic development tool? I think so, but how do you do that effectively, right? And it has this opportunity to be part of the Empire State Trail, which is also known as the Champlain Canalway Trail. And part of why they are funding this study is so that you could hook into the Empire State Trail, connect in. And that is evolving every day, right, Richie? Every day there's something new about that, but I think it's good news, and we'll keep looking at it and seeing how we can effectively connect. We'll also have a public meeting where it'll be a workshop style. So we want you to come back in. We want you to come and help us design this trail. What do you want to see for it? What should it look like? Should it be a footpath? Should it be stone dust in places? Where do you want to see signage? Right? Is it going to be, you not only need to know where the site is, you need to know what it is. So you need to, if you come to the site, to the trailhead, how do you orient yourself? What is this place? Because that's what most people are going to say. Because most people who come by have not read the Post-Star, don't know, that this has come into the light as a very significant historical place. So, and then, how do you tell the story? Do you want to tell the story? Do you want there to be interpretive signage throughout? What does that look like? What does it say on the signs? You know, we're not going to go to that depth for this part of the study, but what we will do is identify where we think the signage should be and how it should get distributed around the site. We'll then come back at the end and make a presentation to the town board of what our findings are, the final plan. Also significant is that we'll develop a cost estimate. So this is still a conceptual trail. This is not building the trail. There are several steps to getting this trail system built. And this is the first part, determining, you know, what is it you have here and what do we have to avoid and what are the assets of the site that we want to incorporate into the plan and to the trail. So we will, based on your recommendations, we will actually cost out everything that has to do with the trail. And I think that there's some, and then we'll identify a grant funding strategy. And there's so many great programs that are out there that will help pay for getting the trail built and putting up good signage. So I think that's really exciting. And it really, I think because of the traffic that comes by here, it's just going to be amazing. I think you're going to get much more use than people maybe initially thought, especially if there's a good trailhead. And the trailhead is important that we size it right. We don't want people parking all over the place. We want to size it right because it's one of those places, you know, people talk, the word will get around, the trail people will stop and want to go there. There's also a lot of effort, I'm part of it, but it's a lot of effort to put trails around Lake George, a rim trail. And as you know, you go over the west side of the property, and I know you're in farm fields, but there might be a way to connect it up into Lake George so you have a continual trail system. And that would be kind of a neat thing to do. So the products. So the products are like a layout and design of the whole site. So you'll be able to see a plan that shows where the trail goes, where the lookout is, where the signage is, you know, all of these things. And then we'll have other things that I've already talked about. What are the priority projects? We'll go through and we'll decide, you know, what should we do first? And what can we put over here? How much can the town do? Or with the county's help? How much can they actually do? You know, a lot of towns I work with actually build the trailheads, which is a considerable cost. You can get funding from the Hudson River Valley Greenway to provide half of those costs, and then the other half can be met by actual construction of the site. So that's a possibility. We'll look at that. We'll look at how it can be built in the most efficient and cost-effective way. So that's the, I put my contact information here. If you all have questions, my email's on here, my phone number. You're certainly welcome to call me. And but I think Richie has a committee in mind, or a start of a committee. So we'll probably be meeting for the first time sometime in April, would you say?
Yeah, I would think April would be very late.
Okay. But right now, with the snow, and it's rugged up there, it's just, we just can't get there yet. So, you know, there's some time here. We also know that they're working on this preservation plan, which should identify the boundaries of the battles itself. And that'll be important for the study. So we'll lope along here and get going and do some of this, you know, at least the first part and some of these other parts that we could do, and then meet and begin to establish the actual trail for the site.
Does the board have any questions, comments?
Yeah, I do. Tracy, the project completion date of October 2018, you think that's realistic?
I do, because the longer you do something like this in planning, more money it costs. It's not, you can do it very efficiently as long as you have the right season and what have you. And, you know, we were supposed to start this a little earlier, but you just couldn't get out there. So it'll go quickly, so I think that is a reasonable date. We always thought it would be about 6-7 months. No hard, fast rule for that, but we'll go as fast as we can. And then you keep up the public interest, And, you know, we want a lot of public input. You know, I'm anxious to hear from people and what they think about this site and how excited they are. People excited about it?
Yeah.
Good. Do you actually think it's going to be an economic development tool or just a nice new asset for Fordham?
I think, you know, if the word gets out,
Yeah.
and you see a lot of people stopping, so I mean, maybe not on a large, but I think it'll have some. You know, it's just a matter of, I guess, once everything is in place, word of mouth and the internet. So,
Tracy, there's another exciting part of this whole piece that we learned about last month. And that is there was a gentleman in town by the name of Mr. Caproot. He has about 100 acres, 92 acres of land that abut the area that we're talking about now. And I spoke to the Civil War Trust, and they are willing to go and look at it and do the examination to see how many acres they would be interested in buying to add to this already to make it, and it might be in the 25 to 30 acre range. But obviously they can't send out the surveyors just quite yet.
Is that just north, 104?
I'm not sure exactly. Christine, do you know exactly, is it to the west or a little bit?
Caproot is where the plaque is,
Okay,
that's
Yeah.
where the main part is at.
I see.
So come this way.
This way, inside of the,
Yeah,
so,
you know, going up along that ridge, I
Yeah.
call it the rock all the way up through
Yeah.
till you hit the clearing is the battlefield. That was one of my questions, is the 40,000 grant is only on the one property. So in order to tell the story,
Well, the $40,000 grant was on the property that we knew of at the time. We had no knowledge of Mr. Caproot coming forward to offer any.
well, that's what I'm concerned about the signage and all that, if you're gonna do trails, we probably should start it.
we can evaluate that as it comes to pass, for sure.
Because on bonus, I mean, we had some, but it wasn't a lot of activity, so what are you gonna say, well, here, the guy waved and there's a musket, but the other two lots, you know, is where, that's what I'm worried about with signage. And trail system, it's going to be more than one trail.
Christine, maybe you could mention briefly about what's going to happen next with SUNY Binghamton?
Well, we already uploaded it onto SHPO, our product has already gone to the American Battlefield, so they can approve it. They've already approved the report, but now it's going to be official after they do their 60 days. Then it'll be uploaded to their site to the BP. Technically, there was supposed to be a third grant we applied for, was for the preservation, but you got it, you went ahead, so I don't have to worry about it. So I'll have to do the third grant for the APP, the American Battlefield Protection Program. The preservation plan was pretty much what we were supposed to do, is go out and bid and get quotes, but you already went ahead and did all that for us, so you don't have to do that.
Well, there's still some stuff to do with the American Battlefield as far as the National Registry and this,
That's under the preservation.
right, under the preservation.
Was the third grant. But as you remember last month when SUNY Binghamton was here in January, you were way ahead of the game. As far
Right,
as
it
the
still has a long way to go before we
Yes.
get the money.
Yes.
It might be good, Christine, if we sit down with Richie at some point and go over, you know, what are the history of the grants, exactly what they were used for, and what we're doing
Yeah,
next.
we've done two. There's, and SHPO has both now, the first one and the second one. And the Battlefield is a lot bigger. It's massive.
And Tracy, Sam Hall is
Yes,
a
sir.
liaison for the town board regarding Battle Hill.
Okay.
So we want him involved in anything that's going to take place initially, obviously the whole board eventually.
Yeah.
But he's the contact person for the Battle Hill project.
And if we want, you know, and somebody to tour with us, be George Sherwood, because he knows from right from the get-go to the end, that's what we've been using. They'll tell you where everything is. So
Okay.
we'll give you contact information later.
Good.
That's what we've been using for how many years now? He's a part of the battlefield himself.
Well, we'll definitely need a tour guide.
Yes. I was gonna use his field for the parking lot, but that's just mine.
Okay.
Tracy,
Did I answer your questions okay? All right,
Thank you.
for now?
all righty, well, thank you very much for
You're
coming this
welcome.
evening.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Okay, next on the agenda is the opportunity for the public to comment on this evening's agenda. Is anyone in the audience that would like to comment on this evening's agenda? Since I see no hands, let's continue on with the reports from the town officials. Supervisor comments. Starting next month, on April 9th, the town board meetings will be held again back at the town hall. Hopefully all the snow will be done by then. You notice that Paul Winchell is not here tonight because he's getting ready once again to go plowing again. Unbelievable amount of time taking care of the roads. I told Paul the other day, I was joking with him, I think he took it as a joke, I hope he did. I said, I'll give you an A for taking care of the roads, but I'll give you a D. I said, no, I'll give you an F for taking care of the weather. Too much snow. The amount of salt that we've used, had to buy this year has been unbelievable. Next, I just want to comment, on Thursday, March 1st, there was a group of us from the town, and there were people from TDI, that's the company who's managing the project for the Champlain Hudson Power Express project. And we met and we went over to the old Route 4s, the north and the south, and we looked at where it's going to come in from. The lines are going to come in from Whitehall, and then when they'll leave the land and go back into the canal in Fort Ann. At the meeting, the TDI people had their engineer. They also had their attorney there, and it was pretty informative. They have a plan. It involves taking the power out of Ontario and bringing it all the way down to Queens, New York. So there's a lot of towns and villages they're going to go through, and they have to do the same thing as they're doing with Fort Ann. They recognize the part about the battle, the Revolutionary War, and they have somebody in place that if they run into anything that needs to be looked at as far as relics, they will make certain that takes care of it. They'll have somebody there that professionally knows what to do. Next, I wanted to just mention that you may have seen in the newspaper that the broadband program for phase 3 for the state has been announced by the governor, and each of the towns were given a market share of increase that they're supposed to get. Fort Ann is, you get, I think it's 497 new homes, addresses are going to be made available for broadband. What we don't know at this point in time is who's the company or companies that will be providing it for Fort Ann, where are the homes located, and what is the delivery system? Is it going to be wireless cable, or is it going to be satellite? What it's going to be? Hopefully later this week, the county will have for us, the supervisors, areas on a map to show you where these 497 homes are located. On phase 2, when Spectrum, at the Spectrum site in phase 2, you can put your address in, and it would say, you're going to be available, we're going to have service available for you in the near future, or come and visit us again in 6 months. Right now, as of today, that does not exist for phase 3. But so the most up-to-date information we hope to get later this, like I said, later this week from the county will be maps that will show different sections of the town where these 497 addresses are located. But there's still a lot of uncertainty, the biggest one being when. When will the service actually be made available? And so I'll keep you posted as more information comes about. Just want to take a moment to talk about the Washington County, the article that was in the paper about the Washington County parking lot project. They went out for a bid to get some bids for the redoing the parking lot, paving it, and getting more parking spaces. And it sounds like a great idea. And there's no doubt that there's a need for more parking spaces. And there's no doubt that there's a need to fix the potholes in the parking lot. But I personally don't believe that that should be one of the top priorities to spend money in Washington County right now. Matter of fact, at the Public Works Committee meeting on February 27th, just want to read you a couple of 2 sentences. Bids are out on the parking lot project and should be back in about 2 weeks. This was on February 20, as of February 27th. Mr. Moore asked for a list of major projects with the dollar amounts. It would be nice for a parking lot, but there are other infrastructure items that need to be addressed first. And Mr. Holman, who's the chairman of the Government Ops Committee, said he's going to put together a prioritization of these other projects. I will not vote in favor of parking lot. I think there's a lot of other things that can be done and addressed in the infrastructure down there, like the IT needs and whatnot, before we deal with the parking lot. I think we can make the parking lot patch some of the holes. I think we can live by some of the shortage of parking spaces at this point in time. Gretchen would be glad to know that Caroline Ouderkirk, the secretary of the Old Stonehouse Library, sent a very nice thank you letter.
Yes.
Great. If you would be kind enough to give that to Barbara for the records, that would be great. And that's it for my report. Next, we'll hear from the town board members. Debbie?
I'm good.
You're good, okay. Sam?
I'm all set.
You're all set. Denny?
The cemetery committee is gonna meet after our meeting.
Today?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yep.
All right,
Yep.
great. Gretchen?
I attended the Office of the Aging Committee meeting this past week, and we've got a couple of things going on. April 19th, it's a senior dinner theater at Argyle School, and the presentation will be The Little Mermaid. Cost is $5. That's anybody over 60 years old can go. Also, there's going to be a journaling and sketching program for the seniors. I believe it's going to be at the library from March through May, and Barb Eagle will be the one to contact for that. I think there'll be some information at the town hall on how to get hold of her. On May 18th, New York State Seniors of the Year will be presented, be presented to the Washington County supervisors. And we have one from Fort Ann, Joe Wright, who's a State Senior of the Year, and Dolores Mullen from Cambridge. They'll be representing Washington County, so I think that's pretty neat. They'll be honored at a luncheon in Albany sometime in May. I also have nomination forms if anyone is interested in nominating a Senior of the Year for next year. So if you have someone in mind who's done a lot of work and would like to nominate them, we've got the forms. Also, there are a lot of activities I'm not going to go over that are happening this month, but they're all posted at the town hall. So if you're interested, stop in. Let's see. The kayak launch. I don't know if you know or not, but we received a kayak launch as part of our the canal for on the canal grant. And before we got it put in the water, it flooded. The whole area flooded, and the kayak launch went for a ride. And we finally got it back and had someone who was going to fix it, but that fell through. So we're at the point now where we're ordering or trying to get parts to fix it, and we might have someone to fix the whole thing, but we're working on that. Hopefully it'll be in by summer. Tracy mentioned and Richie mentioned the Champlain Canal Trail. That's coming along really well, and I've got some information on where it is and how much is done from down toward Albany all the way up to Whitehall. Dave Perkins made this up. He did it himself. It's like 5 pages, and it's great. Or 7 pages. If anybody wants to look at it, I've got one copy. So the bike trail is coming along. It's by 2020. It should be just about all completed. I think that's about it for me.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from the town clerk.
A check was given to the bookkeeper for the month of February, and that's about it.
Next is the highway superintendent, and as mentioned, he isn't here. I hope he's home with some shut-eye because he's going to be back out on the road again in a few hours. Next, Mark Miller, enforcement officer. Mark?
Thank you. So you got my list of achievements here. Signed 5 building permits, no demo permits this month. 27 phone calls, 3 voicemails, 19 emails, 17 texts, which is a testament of right there, the phone and computer emails, voicemails, all that. You can get a hold of me anytime because everybody else does. So. Meetings, I had 12 meetings. Had people coming in, a planned meeting with somebody to have a building permit signed or such things like that. And the town board meeting, planning board meeting. A couple letters, 4 follow-ups, no faxes this month, and 1 message. So, part of what I'm going to discuss with you tonight is we have a gentleman over on 22 and State Route 22, and he has numerous RVs. I drew a map, show you guys whereabouts on his property they're actually parked. There's part of the mobile home law which covers RVs and travel trailers. Part of it says you're not supposed to park a RV travel trailer between the road and your house. In other words, it can't be in front of your house. Another part of it is you're only going to have 1 registered RV or travel trailer on your property. That's per property. He has 5 unregistered vehicles, and he has 5 RVs parked in front of his house between the road and his house. And he's got a school bus out in the backyard that's an unregistered vehicle. And so I sent him Barb and I got in the mail a return receipt, a letter describing to him that he needs to take care of that. He signed for it on the 3rd of February. So on the 3rd of March, I went out and took pictures. I got them on my phone, and he hadn't moved anything. So he's in violation of the law, and we need to set a public hearing to the town board because he needs to come to the town board, and we need to notify him, return receipt, the same thing, and get him to show up next town board meeting. So I'm asking you guys to set a public hearing for next meeting, and we'll get him lined up to come in.
Any questions from the board?
Now I've sent these letters out to him, and anytime I send out a letter, I say contact me to, so we can at least talk about it. And he hasn't called me. So.
Does board have any questions about this? So we'll do the resolutions at that time. We can schedule the public hearing for the Eagle Town Board meeting. Okay?
I have a question, Mark. Do we have, how did this come about? Was there a complaint made about this?
Well, yes, and it's an observation on my part too. But yes, we had a complaint, and we resolved an issue on the other side of the road, just a ways up from him, about boat storage and all that. He never came to planning board, so this was all kind of like right in that same idea, and so we're touching base with a few other things over in Comstock, and this is just one of them on that list. And we're trying to get it resolved without too much trouble.
This individual has been provided with two letters from the town. One was the notice of violation on October 30th. And the second letter is a notice of violation and an order to remedy that was dated January 18th of this year. So,
Yeah, I was just curious, I've seen some other places in town that may fall in this category too.
Oh, yeah, we're getting there.
It's,
It's
how much your cars are.
it's one of those things you can't do all of them at once, and you can't do, you know, you gotta pick the big ones or the most violating or whatever, and you try to not do it all in one area, you try to, you know, pass it around, so, yep, we got a busy spring coming up here, so get ready. That's the end of my report.
all right, thanks.
Thank you.
Historian.
Um,
Dale?
Yeah, I just want to add on to what Tracy was talking about, the signage. You know, there's so much history in Fort Anne, and I think if it comes to Banner Hill, we could, I mean, there's so many, I'm just thinking like, Weller's Match Company. They used to ship matches all over the northeast here, back in Revolutionary time, that period of time, and everybody across from Banner Hill, right there. George could tell you all about that. Canes Falls, there's no signage for that. What I'm getting at, once we get Banner Hill established, she want to know about, there'd be a lot of other places they sightseeing could go if we had the signage. So that's something we should be working on in the future.
And there are grants for those too, for signage like that.
Next, Joe?
I can build on anything in my narrative report if the town board wants to either have me provide more clarification or more information. Prior to the meeting, starting tonight, I gave the town supervisor a copy of a sample format for a homeowner's manual that I'm working jointly with the Lake Cadlock Association and Beth Gillis, I believe that's her last name, with Lake Champlain, Lake George Planning Board. So it's in its early stages, but I hope it looks like this when it's done. And everything is voluntary. It's just, you know, suggestions regarding invasive plants, identification, water conservation, septic systems, stormwater runoff. And this has been a prototype for 4 lakes in the Adirondacks. Paradox Lake, Scroon Lake, Loon Lake, and Grant Lake. And what they did is they just kind of passed it around. Beth helped them. Very, very professional handout. I showed it to Councilman Hall and Councilman Stark, Councilwoman, sorry, Gretchen. When we had a meeting a couple weeks ago. And I'm working jointly with Bill Bailey on it.
It's well done.
Yeah, it's very well
It's
done.
really, really an excellent education piece, to say the least.
So my goal is to have it done by the membership meeting, having enough copies to give it to every lake owner on Hadlock. And I think Beth will be a great asset to me as far as setting up the template and getting everything arranged and minimizing our costs and the LHA's costs.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next we'll hear from Todd Hudson, the dog officer.
Sent the board a couple of read aheads, not sure if you get a chance to read them or not. The first thing I'd like to ask is for the board's approval to use $200 of my contractual towards the school program. The school program has grown throughout the years. We started off with 20 students, we were over 420 last year. Not sure what we're going to be at this year, but I'm assuming that number higher. Kingsbury has approved for me to use some of my contractual money to purchase the boats that we use and some of the other supplies. We do Fort Anne School along with Hudson Falls in Fort Edward. So what I was looking for was the $200 would be enough to budget to cover supplies each year. This year, Kingsbury had already approved and we purchased the supplies so that we'd be ready to go. The cost would be 20%. That would cover what I feel is the amount that are coming out of, the amount of children that are coming out of the town here. The 20% for this year would be $190.20. And I do have receipts where Kingsbury had already purchased that equipment to show that. I do have it in my budget, as I showed on the read as well.
Anybody have any concerns? I've heard some good feedback from school regarding the program. So go right ahead and spend the $200.
I think if it prevents one bite, the cost of a dangerous dog case, as everybody's well aware, can get real out of hand when you're talking legal fees, court appearances, and stuff. So it seems to have a pretty good feedback. Did you want me to go over the other? The supervisor asked me to come up with some options or course of actions for license enforcement. We did the enumeration last year, which was great. We made a substantial amount of revenue off of that. I've talked with Ag and Markets, and they're finding that some of the towns in the area that don't have any enforcement plan in place have lost 50% or some up to 70% of the licenses they picked up on enumeration. People just aren't following through. She asked what I've been doing. Fort Edward and Kingsbury have license enforcement in place that I handle, and both of them were about 10% loss after that first year of the enumeration. Kingsbury's on their second year after the enumeration, and last year they were at a 5% loss of total license, being capped. The options I came up with would be, option one would be what Fort Edward and Kingsbury do, and that's enforcement. Every month or couple months, depending on how many there are, the clerk gives me a list of addresses of people who didn't come in and renew their licenses. I follow up on that to see if they still have their pets, or if they had moved or something like that. Give them an opportunity to come in. They may not have gotten it. Sometimes things get lost in the mail or forgotten. Most of them do come in without having to go to court, and we're keeping our numbers up. The percentages show that we're keeping the numbers up. I think option one, sub-option of option one would be hiring somebody on a seasonal basis to do that once a year. We only have 700 licenses out here compared to the 1,700 in Kingsbury. There may not be a need to have me do that as a year-round type enforcement. Option two, there are a couple towns in the area that use this. It's a no tolerance. Anytime I come in contact with somebody with a dog that's unlicensed, they will get a ticket. They will go to court. They will be fined and penalized. Obviously, there's some negatives to that, especially for me. I try to use an interactive approach when I do dog enforcement, and this tends to make people unhappy if I'm writing them tickets every time I come in contact with them. And option three would, of course, be staying the course of what we're doing currently, and that's based on when I go out on a call, and taking it case by case of what would have to happen.
Todd, go back to option one if you would, and explain the very last sentence of option one, because I think it's important the board hears that.
Oh, the increase of salary on average is about half of the amount of the added revenue that's being brought in for the extra licenses. But that varies based on the amount of licenses, and more importantly, the cost. So it is about half for Fort Edward and Kingsbury, but their licenses are significantly higher in cost than what you charge up here. So
Where do they charge them?
they are charging $12 for a spay or neuter and $20 for an unaltered. And Kingsbury is $13.50 and $20.50. We're at $8 and $15, I believe.
I believe so, right?
So
Now, we just did that last year, though, right?
August
Just
1st of
not
2016,
even-
yeah.
Just a little over a year,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Okay. So, we have three options to think about, and obviously we can pick one of them. Barbara, do you have any comment?
I like what Todd and I are doing right now. Like, he's currently working, because he knows this is a pet peeve of mine. I think
Really?
I drive him crazy. I'm like, are you going out that way? Because I got 4 people, I want you all over them. And so anyway, that's what he kind of does for me now. If he's going that way, you know, he'll ask me, because I do not want him to make a special trip. You know, the mileage is expensive, and, you know, I really don't, you know, it's all up to you guys, but I really don't want him to be spending extra money on mileage or anything.
Your thoughts on that, Todd?
I mean, we sent out to like 5 addresses, kind of got like a little sub-base. 1 responded and said, don't have the dog anymore. 2 came in and licensed, the other 2 haven't responded. I have verified, so I do have evidence that they do still have the dogs. Come the date that I gave them to have it done by, if it's not done, they'll just be sent tickets. I won't drive back out there because obviously there's a mileage cost.
He saw yellow snow, that's how we know. I
Unlike
won't
cats,
give you the other color.
unlike cats, they usually tell you when they're there. So if you hear barking, or you know, there's ways of finding out. But so they'll end up getting, you know, citations come the middle of the month if they haven't taken care of it.
So you're suggesting we stay the course for right now, see how.
Yeah, well, we're kind of anxious to see what's gonna happen with our big months, May, June, and July. Those are gonna be really, you know, the tell-all.
You will more than likely lose a significant amount if we stay the course. It's just the nature of it. Without people being persuaded or kind of motivated to do it, a lot of them won't renew. And it's just, I mean, you could call around to the other towns. A lot of towns have done the enumerations. They're real successful in the ones that, you know, have active dog control programs. The ones that kind of leave it up to an on-call basis, which is what we currently do here, are losing a lot of that revenue.
Why don't we do this? We get to give up the idea that we wait until the June meeting, town board meeting. We'll have the May results at that point in time, right? And then we could say we want to take one of the 3 options, or we want to continue the same course and we'll take it up at the June one, the July one. But rather than say, let's look at wait for May, you know, July to end before we make a decision, we just take a snapshot at the end of May. So
And there are towns you could call too. Argyle did an enumeration, same program, very successful. That should be coming up on renewal, I believe, before us.
Yes.
If it hasn't already. They use option 2. They have a 0 tolerance on dog licenses. Their dog control officers are required to issue every person that they come in contact with a unlicensed dog. Pittstown, I believe it is, out of Rensselaer County, they're the ones that lost significant. They're using the option 3, and they're feeling it.
what's Dan doing in Kingsbury?
They both utilize me. I collect the data every month or every couple months, and I follow up on all of them.
Any board members have any suggestions?
Yeah, I like your idea,
I
check
like
the
your
everyone
idea,
into
too.
the May timeframe at the end of May, see what we have there,
And
and if there's a need, then we'll take
I,
action.
and I would think that if, you know, if the numbers do prove that there's a big problem with this, my recommendation would probably go with the option number 1. All right, so Todd, can you be prepared to come to the June town board meeting and visit with us with the May results?
Yes, sir.
Thanks. Next on the agenda is to open the RFPs.
Just, Supervisor, before we move on, I just made a comment on Gretchen's request on the dock, and this is just a thought I had sitting here, we're going over this. That project would be ideal for maybe an Eagle Scout that was looking to have a project to work on. And maybe if
It
we
might
reach out,
be too much, but we can go that route.
just a thought.
Yeah, that's a good
Okay,
thought.
because I know some have done, not locally have, but I know that they've done something in Pilot Noggery for Queensbury, Boy Scouts at docks and those kinds of things for Eagle projects.
Okay,
It was just a thought.
that's
And
good.
they may not have any candidates as of right now, I don't know that, but this is the time of year they start looking for those things.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Alrighty, so next on the agenda for new business is the opening RFPs for the proposal for the 2018 hand harvesting services for Lake Hadlock.
I only received one, and it was from Invasive Solutions Dive Company out of Albany. They found their way to Fort Ann and met our deadline. Everybody take a peek at.
Joe, do you have a copy of this?
Here, Joe. I'll look at his shoulder.
Page 13. So on page 13, the project cost for the 7-week period of time would be $52,360. Joe had, in his budget for the 7 weeks, had a price tag of $41,888. So it's about about $10,500 more expensive than what's in the budget. You know, how many, these two gentlemen here are the
Yes, sir.
the ones who
Yeah.
submitted the, how many people you have on the program?
One dive crew consists of 3 people, so it's a crew leader, is the guy that's safety observer, the guy on top is kind of got the map to run the show, and then we have 2 divers in the water doing all the harvesting.
How many hours a day would they be doing?
So we do 4 10-hour days. There's an hour break for lunch, and so the breaks it's half kind of to eat and gain your whereabouts, but you need a little decompression time in there as well. So it's typically about a 15 to 20 minute break early in the day, and then they do an hour lunch break throughout the day as well.
Did either one of you work on the project this past summer?
Yes, sir.
You did?
Personally, I have not. Dan has. I spent a lot of time working the lake this past year, so I became pretty familiar with what we were doing. I think I was here for about 4 weeks last year, so I worked a lot of the sites. Worked kind of around the harvesters, so I got to see really how the mechanical harvest was affecting our harvesting. I'm pretty familiar with each of the sites. The way they worked it last year, they kind of moved a little bit more. So I've worked just about all the sites that are shown, but just some weeks they go back, spend another week. So I wasn't there for the entire harvest of each spot, but I am familiar with the sites.
I have a question for Joe. Joe, are you satisfied with the results of the product last year?
Yeah, I feel that the work performance by AIM was above average. I'm not gonna sit here and say that there wasn't areas that that I was totally satisfied with, but at the conclusion of the season, I had a meeting with Tommy Thompson, the owner of AIM at that point, and we went through basically where I thought their shortcomings were, because what I did is I did what they call work verification, and it kind of emulated what Lake George does, but I do it with underwater cameras, they do it with divers and snorkeling. But I think what developed last year, because we used Lycott in 2014, which I had very little interaction with, but with AIM last year, I had a lot. And I think where our shortcomings were expectations, to where there wasn't enough communication as to what constitutes a clear field. You know, when does it require a line swim to make sure that what they thought was a clear field, was it still that way 2 weeks later? Because you do get some growth over a 2-week period that they don't see, you know, during their diving operation. But I guess the best way to answer your question, if AIM was in the ballgame this year, I would have recommended to the town board to hire him back, because I feel that we did round the corner to some degree as far as getting a handle on invasives in the southeast and southwest corner of the lake. We still got a lot of work to do. And I had a different program set up for this year. Again, I met with Thompson after our September meeting. We met before Christmas, and him and I agreed on doing a complete survey of the lake this spring and identify every milfoil bed by GPS coordinate, every milfoil bed, by density, by perimeter, by size, and then do an evaluation as to how are we going to tackle the problem. And, you know, I think that we're on course to doing that. And obviously, I didn't know who was going to get the bid this year, so that would be something that I would work on very diligently. So we're not going in this year with doing a survey with a contractor, just picking the high density beds, but coming up with a more strategic plan as to where we can hand harvest, where we can mechanically harvest, where we want to keep the mechanical harvester out of because of fragmentation of invasives. And I think, be quite candid about it, that was a weakness as part of our program last year, because the mechanical harvester produces a lot of fragments. And if you do not have a plan in place to keep the harvester out of high density milfoil beds and let the divers take care of that, you could have 5 pontoon boats during surface collection. You're not going to get all the fragments. So my plan was, again, after meeting with Tommy, is to identify every milfoil bed. It would be what I would call selective operation of the harvester, and keep the harvester out of milfoil beds to where I felt that the fragmentation was such of a high risk that, you know, we couldn't use the mechanical harvester in there. And I would unleash, you know, the hand harvesters in those areas too. Again, you know, I think the town board, if you look back 2 years ago or 3 years ago, everybody knew that this was going to be a 3 to 5 year plan. You know, we're in year 2, but my objective, I think I voiced it either during budget workshops or at other times. My objective is to cut back on the use of the mechanical harvester because of the risk with fragmentation. Have a more selective operation as it concerns that machine, and do as much hand harvesting as we can do to hopefully get to a point to where we can totally take chemicals as far as any consideration off the table, and really manage the lake through hand harvesting and minimal mechanical harvesting. and probably year 4 and 5.
If you turn to page 11, if my reading is correctly, the first week you plan to do every hand harvesting is going to be in July,
Yes.
and you're going to do 2 weeks in July and then come back in August.
Right. The dates we listed are kind of how we evaluating what was done last year and the sites I worked. Kind of thought that might be the best approach. Obviously, we're willing to work with Joe, figure out time frame that would work best for you. But getting early in July, we're really shooting for when you're going to start seeing a lot of the growth start to happen. We're looking to essentially start with hitting sites like where you can launch a boat. You're going to have a lot of chance of people launching, spreading fragmentation, stuff like that, docks. So we were going to start there, and then we wanted to go ahead and swim over what was worked last year, kind of get a grasp of, if there's resurgence in any area, where that's at, and that kind of gives you a good idea of what's going to have to be managed there. And then we wanted to go ahead and start working up towards the lake to get the beds that really hadn't been touched last year to get them down.
Well, Richie, if I could add, this has have to be kind of fluid. And what I do is, if they do a survey in May as to identifying milfoil beds, I will do the necessary recon missions in June. And if I think, because I don't want to put that mechanical harvester in high-density milfoil bed for obvious reasons. So if I think the growth is to the degree it is, then invasive solutions are going to have to be a little bit flexible, so we don't have a lot of boat chop over the holiday. Because if I have areas that I don't want to put the mechanical harvester in, then I'm going to have to rely to a heavy degree on if invasive solutions gets the job as far as cutting back some of this milfoil density.
Then you plan on coming back in September. Typically then the milfoil is kind of
It's dying off then.
right at that period of time, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we just come up and we can also go over areas we had worked previously and get any last regrowth that popped back up before the end of the season when the plants start dying off.
Well, there's one problem with is the cost. The cost is $52,000, and the budget amount was $42,000. So there's a $10,000 swing in that, and that is going to be problematic as far as the overall program. What would the effectiveness be of the program if we said to you, okay, all we can afford to do is spend $42,000? What would happen from your end?
I would essentially just cut back on the amount of time we spend at the lake. We could try to focus on time frames and areas that we think are the biggest priorities, work those, and then kind of move from there. Like Joe was saying, with this, it's pretty fluid plan of action. It's great to go in with a great idea of exactly how we're going to do it, where we're going to do it, but the plant doesn't follow rules. Invasives they're invasive because they're good at what they do. So it's one of those things where the fluidity in it all would kind of just take control, and we figure out where do we allocate resources, what's the best approach. Working with the harvester, I don't know where the harvest is going to be worked, but we can work with that to it's a two, hit it from two different angles. From what we've seen with our past experience, we have a little mechanical harvests make a lot of fragmentation, so it is difficult to work around them. But I think with both angles, you can really get a pretty good management plan to do what we have to do and hit the big priority areas.
So if you look at your price of $52,000 and you say we can only afford $42,000, it's roughly 20% difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would that equate to then, if you take that, would you say if you get 7 weeks, would you say that's like 1.4 weeks of the time that you would be down, that would be like 5.5 weeks?
Essentially, yeah.
What do you think about that, Joe?
I guess the question I have is, and again, I don't have last year's proposal by Tommy Thompson, but how does these hourly rates in week totals compare against what he charged us last year?
They're pretty similar.
Okay.
So we're both former employees of AIM. We've been doing this for 5 years. So we kind of had, we worked with Tommy, really, because it's hard, everyone was a little bit shocked when AIM decided to dissolve. So to really forward the process, it kind of helped us evaluate costs. Obviously insurance is a huge cost. Payroll is one of our huge costs. So it was kind of working with him to see what kind of numbers he's worked with in the past to find out, reasonable costs. And where he was at is pretty low on the spectrum of what I think a lot of the other companies out there. And the cost analysis he had that was for over about 10 years that we're doing it, so it's a pretty accurate cost analysis.
How solid are you on a 10-hour workday? And the reason why I ask that is I would prefer a 5-day work week. I've had this discussion with Tommy because I just feel that in a 10-hour workday, that's a long time for you guys to be on the water. And I know you take a lunch break and decompression or whatever you do. And again, I'm not telling you guys how to do your job, but I was on the water a lot last year, and I almost think that we would get more of a benefit from an 8-hour workday versus a 10. But if that doesn't work legitimately for you guys, then
so the issue we run into that is that we'd have to basically change operations for any lakes we have. A lot of lakes, so it's convenient that we're a lot closer on Lake Cadillac. There's not a lot of travel time, but say, for us, the reason, big portion of 10 hours is to get your boat launched, gassed, everything ready to go, and travel to work sites takes up a lot of the day. So the 10 hours was, hey, we can travel less by doing 4 days, and then we can get out, get more work done that day. So really, we'd have to change all the scheduling. It would be very difficult. Another thing is just in general, what we do, we find it very difficult to hire because there's, people love diving and love going down and seeing things, but we essentially work in mud, so it's not really people's favorite jobs. So we use a 3-day weekend as like an extra decompression time for them to get out there and really, the extra time helps them refresh on the next day. And then even when it comes to us in the water, it seems long, but the 10-hour days goes by pretty quick. So it's
I mean, what's your estimation?
Joe,
Just
okay,
go ahead. Yeah.
Just for a second. I have the proposal from AIM from last year.
Okay.
And their proposal for AIM last year was $7,480 a week. And they were gonna work for 6 weeks.
Right.
This proposal is exactly the same, $7,480 a week, but it's 7.
Right.
So that's why the additional cost.
Okay.
That's partially the reason why the additional cost.
I mean, out of a 10-hour day, how many hours do you feel you guys are in the water?
It's not like 8 hours.
About 8 hours.
Like 8.5. And to add on to what Dan was saying, it may sound like a long day, like it's really tiring, but me diving for the past few years with AIM, it's really not that bad. And having the extra 3rd day for a weekend really helps you recharge your battery to come back to work the following week. So I would rather work 4 10-hour days to have that extra day off to recover, to get ready to get in the water for the following week.
As far as hours in the water, it really depends because there's new surface surveillance where you go out, you kind of, instead of having a swimming hole there, you get a diver through, you get your divers to be able to identify plants, kind of help quicken the process, get you that solid day plan. So if we were to just show up, get in the water, diving, you get about 8 hours, but it depends upon really what exactly you did that day.
Right.
You also have to look at, they're gonna have the same setup time, 4 hours,
Right,
1 week, so you
exactly.
really need an extra 2
Right.
hours of.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Can I ask you a few more questions? What about the photography part of it, Dan?
So, photography, that's something that we haven't done in the past. Ian kind of did it when they first were up and running, and then they shied away from it because they just found that it was hard to really, you know, they look nice, but then when it grows back next year, people are like, well, what's going on here? We have no issues taking photography. That's kind of an angle we really think to push ourselves and promote ourselves as a company. It's something that we want to get into. But we don't have much experience doing it, and we have nobody that's trained to do that type of stuff. So generally what we think would be quickest, you know, for time and effectiveness is to essentially send a diver with a GoPro and kind of have them swim either a couple laps or, you know, depending upon their work, and really go down there with that to provide the whole aspect of what we're doing before and after. There's a couple things that you asked for, was like returning 2 days after site's been worked, but obviously with a 3-day weekend that can be difficult. And the other thing with photography is that unfortunately we're working pretty adverse conditions. So it's hard for us, because it said that in there it reads that until there's 100% satisfaction with, you know, that the town says we've completed everything to 100% satisfaction. Throwing photography under there, we're afraid that it's going to be a little bit difficult for
to achieve it.
It's just, I can't say that, you know, if it say it rains a lot 1 week, if it rains a lot and then we get in the water after all that rain, you see a lot of turbidity in the water. So we could take the same exact photo 1 week to the next, and the photo quality is going to be completely different. And that's something that we want to work on as a company, and we're willing to work with you and the town to really figure out what is the most satisfactory that everybody can be happy with. We just don't want to end up where we're spending, you know, an hour a day trying to get the perfect picture, and then, you know, we harvest less at that point.
Right. What about flexibility as far as scheduling? There's obviously gaps with the periods that you're scheduled. What if a scenario does develop to where, you know, we need you during one of these periods to where you're not scheduled? How much flexibility do you guys have with other jobs that you've taken on?
So I would say further out, the more notification, obviously, the easier. But we have, with the other clients we're working with, we kind of have it broken up in segments as well.
Gotcha.
So flopping a week here, a week there isn't really a major issue. It's just we try to get in, essentially what we do with everybody, we try to get in early so we can get on to any major issues early in the season, and then we'll wait till it starts to grow a little bit more to get back to harvest those areas. So then we like to do it, we put a couple weeks later in the season as well, once it starts to really settle back and you're not seeing a lot of growth. That's to get in and kind of ensure that the areas that, you know, were good are still good, to move that, keep that forward progression. So those dates rough, but
you're flexible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
They're not set in stone by any means.
The liability part isn't what?
We're looking at that right
Okay.
now. Why don't we do this? Why don't we put this on hold for a moment?
Okay.
We'll continue on with the meeting.
Okay.
We'll give you a chance to look at the, you guys, can you hang around for a few more minutes?
Absolutely.
Okay. We'll do the resolutions, then we'll come back and finalize this, what we want to do regarding this matter, okay? Let's see, next on the agenda are the resolutions. Barbara, if you be kind enough to read resolution number 60.
Resolution to accept part-time planning board secretary Deb Byfield's resignation as of February 28th, 2018.
Okay, we need a motion for that.
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I vote aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Which gives the resignation of the clerk. Okay, next is number 61.
Resolution to support Champlain Hudson Power Express project.
We need a motion for that.
I'll move it. I'll second it.
Barbara, could you read important parts of that.
Sure. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Fort Anne is fully familiar with the project, including the scope of the work to be performed by CHPEI within the town of Fort Anne in furtherance of the project. That the town clerk is hereby directed to forward a certified copy of this approved resolution to Transmission Developers Incorporated at the Prater Schuyler Building, 600 Broadway, Albany, New York, 12207 for inclusion with CHPEI's application for amendment to its New York State Certificate of Environmental Compatibility and Public Need, and any required applications for amendments to the project's federal permits.
Any further discussion needed on this? Okay,
We do have to do a roll call when you're ready.
anybody have any questions or comments?
Councilman Fletcher,
Yes.
Councilwoman Stark,
Yes.
Councilman Hall,
Yes.
Councilwoman Witherell,
Yes.
and Supervisor Moore.
Yes. Number 62.
Opposition to taxable owned land conversion to pilots. Now therefore be it resolved that the Fort Anne Town Board declares that the assessments of taxable state-owned land should remain under control of the local municipality where such property is located, and is hereby opposed to New York State converting the assessment of taxable state-owned land into a payment in lieu of taxes, and be it further resolved that copies of this resolution be sent to Governor Andrew Cuomo, Senator Elizabeth Little, and New York Assemblyman Dan Steck.
You may have read in the newspaper or heard in the news about the proposal to change the way the state will pay taxes on the lands in the Adirondack and the Catskill area. Back in it was 1886 that they decided at that point in time that the state would pay the fair market value of the land to the towns, and that's been that way since then. But now there's this thought to change the way that they're going to be paying the taxes on this land that's designated part of the Adirondack Park Agency. For us, we, Fort Anne, we probably have, I think, the greatest amount of land. Right now, we have total assessed value for the town is $653 million. But this land, if you were to remove the land, it's roughly 10%. It's $591 million. So, if this is changed to a pilot in lieu of taxes, one of the things that would happen, what they would like to see happen, is that any future growth would be limited to 2% or the lesser of the cost of living adjustment. So it could have a financial impact on the towns as we go further, and who knows if it would change. Some of these pilots, when they start out and they say, okay, we'll do 50% for X number of years, and we'll go to 75% and 100%. Maybe it stays at 100%, but then if it, in the next 10 years, if it should have gone up maybe 15%, and if it's limited to 10% or only 8%, depending upon what the inflation index is at the town would be losing money. And eventually, that money, the shift of the money would go to the taxpayer, would have to pick up that amount of lost income. So that's why I think it's imperative that the town sends the letter of opposition for this idea, and continue as the continuance of the payments continue the way they are today. Any further discussion needed on this? Everybody all set? Okay. Want to do a roll call vote on this, please?
I need a motion.
We didn't do that. Okay.
I'll make the motion.
And second, Denny.
Yeah.
Okay.
Councilman Fletcher,
Yes.
Councilwoman Stark,
Yes.
Councilman Hall,
Yes.
Councilwoman Witherell,
Yes.
and Supervisor Moore.
Yes. Okay, resolution number 63.
Resolution to declare surplus equipment. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Fort Anne declares the 1998 International Single Axle Plow Truck, 2005 Ford F-150 Extended Cab, 2005 Peterbilt Plow Truck as surplus. Resolved that the highway superintendent and the town supervisor are hereby authorized to sell the equipment to the person or entity providing the highest offer through a private negotiated sale or via Auctions International.
So we need a motion on this.
I'll make it.
I'll second.
So Paul's intention is to take these 3 pieces and send it to auction to see what we can get. And then if it doesn't sell at auction, then we would go try to sell it privately, but to send it over to the auction first. And this is in the plan that we talked about last month. These are the 3 pieces that we mentioned at that point in time. Any further discussion needed?
Councilman Fletcher,
Yes.
Councilwoman Stark,
Yes.
Councilman Hall,
Yes.
Councilwoman Witherell,
Yes.
and Supervisor Moore.
Yes. So we'll skip over the 64 right now for the hand harvesting.
Can I bring up just one thing?
Sure.
Can we go back to, I need a motion, if you all agree on the $200 contractual money for the supplies for the dog control officer?
What's in the budget?
So do you wanna do a motion in a second, or?
You can just do it
You
all.
can just do it,
take
okay.
out of his budget. There's another resolution needed for the dam insurance on Tadlock, and that'll be number 65. You have a proposal here for dam insurance through the pool insuring agency. It's from the Chubb Insurance Company. And if you turn to page 11, it starts to talk about, you'll see it says general policy information. You can do either a 1-year term or with a 2-year option. And as you know, in the last couple of renewals, we've done the 2-year option. It locks the premium for that period of time. And you don't subject yourself to possible increase in the second year. And I'm pleased to announce that the insurance on the lake for the dam for the 2-year option would go down, decrease by $1,545. So the 2-year period that's expiring on the 26th of this month, we did 2 years ago, was $92,493. And for the 2-year proposal, it would be $90,948. And all the coverages and the deductibles would stay the same as they are today. So the only change that would happen would be the reduced premium by $1,545.
I'll make a motion you remove the 2-year term.
I need a second on that.
Second.
Any further discussion needed? Aye votes aye.
Aye.
Any nays? We should do, we should do a roll call on this because of the amount of.
Yep. Councilman Fletcher,
Yes.
Councilwoman Stark,
Yes.
Councilman Hall,
Yes.
Councilwoman Witherell,
Yes.
and Supervisor Moore.
Yes. And then we need a motion to schedule a public hearing on April 9th, 2018, and ask Mr. Zutak to be in attendance at that meeting regarding the violations of the mobile home law.
I'll move it.
Second.
Any further discussion needed? I
Would
vote.
that move the meeting up a little bit earlier, or just?
It would be
Same thing.
Same thing, it would be Very down there, we'll have it. All right. This would be similar to what we did, this was a year ago.
Yeah.
On the headlock,
Trailer.
trailers. Okay. Joe, have you had a chance to look at the proposal further?
Yeah, I think everything, or most things look in compliance with what we requested in our RFP. Again, there has to be some flexibility regarding, I have to compliment Dan and Steve for the layout of this plan, which wasn't in the previous proposal that we got, as to you mapping out projections from week to week. That gives me an idea as to, you know, where you feel, because you spent a lot of time in it, and you spent some, but it gives me a good idea as to your plan of attack, you know, working through the summer. But I would ask for flexibility there. I mean, it's in the proposal and house as far as communication between me and you folks, but the reporting is complied with, Richie, as far as the weekly report after each week's operation, end of the year summary. Again, if they do get the contract, I will work with both of them as far as the photograph requirement. AIM didn't do it last year, so, and we managed to get through the season. And because I have underwater cameras, it's pretty easy to check, you know, what's transpiring.
Anything from your?
Joe had pointed that insurance wasn't what was requested.
The
Amounts.
3 million, and it's only for,
It's the proposal required 3 and 6. What was offered was 2 and 4. We don't know what the carrier is, or what the costs are, what the coverage is. So, for the deductible, I don't. It's just not what was requested. So.
where are you on insurance?
The figures we came up with insurance, we've been working with insurance broker that's been working, they worked with AIM previously. I know they're working with some other companies and kind of worked with what was really, anything they've dealt with in the past, what would be sufficient to cover everything. And these are the numbers they suggested. We didn't want to go any lower than that, but that was the coverage they suggested. We got a quote on to do the additional coverage, but that's a significant cost increase. And the rate we're at, we're not planning on having a deductible. We're paying a little bit higher rate, so if anything does happen, it doesn't tank us in the end. As far as, I mean, we can get all the paperwork. Essentially, we haven't started the plan yet. We haven't started the insurance for the purpose of saving initial upfront costs for us. But we have, obviously, we have another lake we're working with that. The way we're going to do it is we're going to get all the coverage started. We can provide all the paperwork before we sign any contracts with them. Obviously, we provide that for you folks as well.
What does Lake George require as far as coverage?
That's what Lake George requires.
Okay.
And that was the other thing. We asked for any proposal that was out there, requested them all. And that is like Lake George, that's what they want. We're working with Upstairs Lake, that's sufficient for them. So that is, amongst all the other clients we work with, that is the coverage that they've been asking.
So just put the insurance to the side just for a minute if we could. What are we gonna do about, we cannot afford the $52,000.
We cut it to 5.5 weeks. Can you live with that as a contractor?
Yeah. Yeah, we can make that work.
It's not what was requested on the RFP, but.
The nature of the proposal allows you to do whatever.
Flexibility,
Yeah.
right.
My problem is you know the insurance company's better than most.
That doesn't make me an expert at it.
No, it's not.
Board have any thoughts about the insurance?
Was that insurance request based on what the previous one was from last year? The RFP from last year, that one kind of echoed what was in there?
Yeah, that number is, truth be told, I don't even know where the number originated from. I believe it originated from project manager. Just the nature of the risk that's involved with those scuba diving.
I was just gonna say that I would feel comfortable if the other towns that they're working with had felt that this was adequate to bring them on board to do it. That, you know, we wouldn't be anything more exceptional than what there was to be with any of these other leagues that they're working on.
The concern that I have is that you don't have the insurance in place today.
Mhm.
Who's your broker?
Was it Heckler?
Haler, Frere, and Kuhn. Haler, Frere, and Kuhn.
Where are they?
Syracuse.
Yeah, Syracuse. Essentially, so we've been working with the broker there. Essentially, she's a phone call away. Because when we worked with her, she said, listen, a lot of the lakes aren't going to want to sign paperwork until you have this in place. She suggested, you know, it's going to save you, you know, a lot of money up front to just wait until people you know, they go through your proposal and people want to work with you at that point. You know, when it comes time to signing the contract, we can start at any point. We have a 60-day window from when we got the quote that they can guarantee that quote at. We're well within that at this point. So that's just, and if that's something that the town wants to see, that's not a problem again.
That's an interesting take on that young lady's part, because if had there been more than one quote, one request for proposal that come in, and you don't have the insurance and the other one has the insurance, you would be saying to us, well, you know, just trust us, we're gonna have the insurance in time for the project. That's not the case here, we only have one quote, and I'm not surprised. I'm pleased with the fact that we were able to get at least one quote in March of the year that you want to do in harvesting. Because you have to put your business plan together prior to March, hopefully, right?
What we've done so far is we have it's just an email from the agent just quoting exactly what we're looking for, and just essentially that it's in place waiting for us.
Any chance you have a copy of it with you?
I probably do in my car. I can double check.
Let's go get it.
Sure. Let me go.
Can I just stick my nose in it for a minute? On the insurance, dealing with SUNY Binghamton, when we did our RFPs, just to say, you know, when we did it, we did not have insurance until they got the money, you know what I mean, until they were awarded the grant. Then we sat down and they got their insurance and stuff, then we got the certificates from it. So I'm just saying it's not a lot of people, when you're doing RFPs and grants and things like that, have insurance in place until they're actually awarded it.
Why don't you see if you can get that,
Yep.
My 2 cents. It's not unusual, little name. And mine's
I think the 2 million, 4 million, that's acceptable.
Just at the date for
Yeah. What?
$1 million, I think is acceptable. Johnny, turn to page 14 if you would please, everyone.
Yep.
Yep. Look at number 3. Says the GPS data points constitute work product, trade secrets, which is filed by the dive company. This information give the contractor some competitive business advantage or the opportunity to obtain an advantage.
That came up last year too, Richie, because when I got the site maps as to areas.
Hold on. Excuse me, Christine. It's tough to listen to Joe and his background noise. Go ahead.
When Tommy Thompson submitted his weekly reports, I requested GPS coordinates, and he said that they're trade secrets, and because if you looked at the map, the eye mapping that they did, you know, it was illuminated where they were, but there was no associated GPS coordinates provided with the work product. Yeah, so, but what I plan on doing this year during May is mapping this whole lake, and I don't really need their trade secrets. And because I'm on the lake every day that they're working, it's really no surprise as to where these guys are working. We have our own GPS, and we're going to do some software with the mechanical harvester to where we can download it. So I don't really see that as a major concern because of the mapping they do. And hopefully the lake is picked this year by APA as far as a iMapping grant, so that again would be additional support for us as far as mapping out this lake, but I don't really have a big concern with that.
Does the board have any questions? Any questions?
Richie, one point I'd like to make is last year, if you track the billing of AIM, they were scheduled to work 27.5 days, and they came in less than that because of weather, potential conflicts. So, I mean, it's my job to make sure that we don't go over our budget and we use the money wisely.
Last year, AIM, I think they was like 42,000 or 44,000.
Yeah,
yeah. And they actually billed us $38,000.
Right.
Is that them driving away?
I hope not.
I hope not.
If they are, we're without hand harvesting this year.
We'll pass you the other board members to sign for the payment of the insurance on the dam. Joe, why don't you just go ahead, tell us mine, okay? If they don't have it, we can take it. continue on the meeting, they can, after it's time for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to, make comment this evening?
I got a question more on the water, okay? Isn't the harvesting done for, not only for the weeds, but also for algae control and so on and so forth?
No, it's the harvester is like a lawnmower, and what it does, it cuts.
Yeah, well, my question is, okay, because Governor Como, it was announced, was putting $480 million for cleaning up the water in New York, upstate New York.
Yes.
Before they're gonna be getting any of that?
In the past, the headlock has not received anything because of the fact that it's considered to be a private lake. And there's supposedly no access to the public.
But the state owns the water. But shouldn't that be looked into to see if there's any money?
The question is about the proposal, the money that the state's making available for algae blooms.
Yeah.
And,
There's 10 or 11 designated lakes. We're not one of them.
For this year.
For this year.
Right.
And it's a continual project. I forgot over how many years, but we are attending the seminar, a representative to get more information.
As you know, in the past, one of the things that has hurt Hadlock is that it's considered to be a private lake. People
Correct.
supposedly have public access to the lake, except when you look on a Saturday and Sunday and you see the number of boats out there. And, there's a couple extra boats on that lake once in a while, Judge, huh?
It's a dead lake all week long, the whole weekend.
But the weekend is sure not dead, that's for sure.
Tell Supervisor, they couldn't find the email,
Okay.
but
Here's
they'll
what we need to
produce
do.
whatever you want.
This is what we need. Let us finish, then we'll go back to finish we'll finish with you guys right now. Here's what we're gonna need from you.
Sure.
And chime in, please, if you have any suggestions. You need to send us a proposal that meets the budget number that Joe has in his budget, and that number is, I'll give it to you once again. Joe, give it.
888 is number 8.
41,888.
Correct.
Okay, give us a proposal on that. And provide us with some proof about the insurance of what you're gonna have, what you have. And obviously, until we actually get the physical insurance document declaration page in our hand, you can't do any, you're not gonna be doing any diving. We wouldn't allow that to take place, obviously. Everyone's protection. We can approve it, subject to the 41,800. If the board votes on that this evening, we will approve it conditionally upon getting the new description of the program and the insurance documentation.
I'll make that motion.
And the contract has to meet Jeff Meyer, our attorney's approval, okay?
Absolutely.
All right?
No problem.
Sam?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Well, we already did it already.
And Debbie's a second.
Yeah, Debbie's a- okay. Gretchen, any questions or concerns? Debbie? No? Debbie?
Sound fine?
Okay. Do a roll call vote through, please.
Councilman Fletcher,
Yes.
Councilwoman Stark,
Yes.
Councilman Hall,
Yes.
Councilwoman Witherell,
Yes.
and Supervisor Moore.
Yes. And before we go to public, so thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. No problem. Thank you.
Before we go to public comment, I want to thank the people in the audience for being patient while we worked through this request for proposal, the actual proposal itself. So now is the time. Is there anyone else has any questions from the public to be heard? Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to be heard this evening? Since I see no hands, we'll go on with the agenda. There is no need for an executive session this evening. So what we need is a motion to adjourn the meeting, but before we do that, I want to remind everyone once again, starting next month, April 9th, town board meeting, 6 o'clock at the town hall. So a motion to adjourn the meeting,
I'll make it.
Now second it.
any discussion? I vote aye.
Yeah, it's gonna be. Maybe just nice to be it's different choice. We're gonna go with, you know, not the same old, kind of thing, you know, but it's gonna be